Hey y'all, this is your girl BMORE and welcome to the Dummies Cauldron.
Hey, this is your girl BMORE, and today we are going to talk about Venus in Gemini. So, this is a very interesting transit. I know I talked about it in the weekly roundup about how Venus can really lighten the mood, especially now that there's almost like this deep, obsessive, over the top energy, and it can provide some lightheartedness in the sign of Gemini for us to, loosen up a little bit. Yes, I did say that. However, there are certain things that we have to look out for because, how it's starting won't be how it ends though. That's why I specifically said, depending how well we deal with it, how responsible we are, how mature we are, it adds some lightheartedness. For people who struggle with those things, well, by the end of this, that y'all gonna have problems, okay? Y'all are going to have problems, and that's the easiest way and the easiest thing that I can really say about this transit. Is like, either you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. It's not like, let's be subjective. No, let's be factual. So here, Venus and Gemini, it can give people added responsibilities, or like a position of authority. It's great for being financially well off, music, but there's a fickle and detached nature. There's a desire for freedom, being attracted to funny or smart people or things. This is also a good time for literature and poems. Now, this placement overall lacks longevity, like we talked about before in the previous, I think the weekly roundup of like the 29th to the 5th. It lacks longevity, and sometimes there's a desire for more than one partner. Superficiality. This is great for relatives and siblings, and overall just wanting to get outside and do a variety of things. This can also show up as intellectualizing emotions, which may or may not, depending on like where you are on a scale of emotional intelligence, may or may not be a good thing. So all of that really just depends on how deep into certain sides you are, because sometimes intellectualizing emotions can be helpful in trying to like think about what we actually feel. For some people that intellectualize everything, this could be a problem because we start off having fun and we end up in painful situations because we might be bimbos or a little bit airheaded. And so I would like to call this theme Venus and Bimbo. I actually got that topic from Prince. He's very funny, but I was describing some of the stuff and he brought it up. But yeah, Venus and Bimbo. So the start of this transit, we are able to attract everything now. It's easy. It's almost like what we talked about, the law of attraction. And if we can do that with proper mindset and effort, we can get anything that we need, whether it's investments, loans, etc. There can be unusual and quick love affairs at this time. This is great for gifts giving and receiving, friendships, just overall group activities and socializing. We are open to everything new. We're open to mental stimulation, positive changes, maybe metaphysics, and a wide sweeping change that is really not in our control. So think like a company restructuring, global events, etc. We also have it where we want to make long-term commitment and investments, whether it's in real estate, in career, making long-term investments in our career, solid relationships. So any relationships we have now, we want to try to solidify them and be more committed. And we may even see someone from the past. We may even see a past situation pop up. Now, Neptune is also positively aspecting, and so this is a great time for romance, music, fantasy, joy with people you love, and charm, and just overall socializing. This is also a great time to make a difference in people's lives, whether it's friends or whatever, because they will value your input. This is great for charity and having insights. But I will say, try not to let people convince you of too much things. Like, listen to what they have to say, but like, if people being too pushy, you keep that in mind. Like, I don't know what's going on. Bye. This is great to work within structures that are given, and it gives time for people to try to embrace change or whatever's going on. Use this time to plan, organize, and restructure, even dealing with home improvements. That is how it began. So all of this started like July 3rd or 5th or something like that. All of this starts around that time. Okay, so everything is going good, everything's great, peachy, blah blah blah. But how like everything's Gucci. Okay, well, at the end it was indeed not Gucci. Okay, because by the end of this transit that we have at the end of this month, we have Venus squaring Saturn, and so there's a hard time connecting to people. So all these people we met and we connected with and we're vibing with, now we're having a hard time like really clicking with them. Maybe we feel isolated at this time, even if it's without a good reason. This is a good time to try to do some introspection and try to see why I feel that way, or where is this even coming from. And through introspection, we may see the end of relationships, and we may even see regrets and people regretting things that they've done in the past. So like regretting things that we started at the beginning of July, and by the end of July, like, I wasn't really feeling it, or, it seemed like a good idea in a moment, but now I'm just in a place where I just was like, I wish I never did it. I wish I never met them. I wish I never, with them. Like, that's why I say, for some people who are responsible and mature, this would be great. For some people who aren't, it's a very painful, powerful, but important lesson. We also see it where we could be idealizing love, romance, and maybe just overall perfectionist, which can create illusions for us. So we aren't able to see people very clearly. We see illusions, and the illusions can be whether people we have in close proximity, partners, or whatever. And so we can be disillusioned at this time. We can be deceived, and we overall are disappointed. I would say, don't bring up any financial matters, have any major decisions, or this loan or whatever, till more cooler heads can prevail, because this is all just a very fresh, intense, kind of thing. And so some people might just kind of like, hell, what is the saying? Hell may care. They just kind of throw themselves out there, and, by the end of it, they boo-hooing and crying, like, and I'm not saying it like I don't care, like I'm laughing, but it's very telenovela, it's very soap opera, Days of Our Lives. So I want y'all to have fun. I really do. But I just don't want y'all to be out here, running around like y'all on Love Island or any of those other dating shows, and then you boo-hooing and crying on the couch. Okay. So you guys take it easy and don't live so hard. This will especially be intense because Saturn and Neptune, there's gonna be a whole lot of planets retrograde at the end, through the course of this month, which I will be recording on. So like Neptune, Saturn, Mercury, you name it. So, I want you guys to just really just take a chill pill, think things clearly. Do I actually like this person, or do we just have communication issues? Do we have anything in common? Like, was my desire for being different or just wanting something different, was it valid? Because now I have something different, and I realize I don't actually like different. I like what I liked before, or maybe I tried something new and it just wasn't it. We also see that Venus is squared Mars, and so there can be some romance and socializing, but this also triggers conflict with partners and intimate partnerships or people that we're just close with in general. And this is sometimes be around the idea of finances. That's why I say keep your money a secret. Don't tell nobody. This isn't a good time to be impulsive in your relationships, and I would not recommend shopping because, again, the impulsivity is very strong here. We also have Venus squared K2, and so we can see past love affairs. So we started off, okay, this is so crazy. We started off with a past love affair like Saturn, but we end off with a past love affair like K2. And like some K2 can sometimes deal with like negation, like negating or like denying something. K2 can also deals with like injury, hostility. K2 can also deal with knowledge or psychic or spiritual insight. So that's just so strange. Like we start off with Saturn and Venus actually do get along, so it's like more of a committed, more grounded type of thing, because they're positively aspecting each other, at least what we think it is, because Saturn is by Neptune, so we think it's grounded. We met somebody from the past and it was like it ended up right, you go back to them, and then by the end of this transit you're like, wow, they really are a piece of work. Like I should have never, they messed up my whole vibe, my whole routine, everything is just in shambles. And that's really some of the stuff that we can see. We can even see this with just people making poor monetary decisions. So like, again, what seemed like a good idea in the moment leave you poorer but wiser. What seemed like a good idea in the moment, leave you crying and boo-hooing, So this is a very interesting transit. I do want you guys to have fun. I just don't want y'all to be stupid. Okay. So keep that in mind. But we can see past love affairs, we can see injury in love, some discomfort, having people deny or negate art, love, or beauty or charm. So people like, we were committed and we're with each other at first, but now people are like denying you, they don't claim you. None of that. We can see issues with the wife. We can see a loss of knowledge or what brings us comfort and joy. So we lose what brings us comfort, we lose what brings us joy. This also may cause hostility, a loss of being able to imply or convey something, and an increase of misunderstandings. This overall brings sometimes loss of a spiritual or psychic nature or insight. This will also create car and travel problems. I will also say, since Mars is the ruler of Venus and it opposes Pluto, and Pluto is retrograded, and so is Mercury retrograded. So Mercury is the ruler of Venus because Venus is in a Mercury sign like Gemini. Because that is the case, and both Pluto retrogrades and Mercury retrogrades, we can get into like very intense, almost like obsessive forms of conversation and interactions with people, and maybe even intense and obsessive love affairs. And because Pluto isn't strong with certain regards, like it's retrograded, so there's issues with like relationships, finances, control, being possessive, and Mercury isn't strong in communication. We can see all of this stuff just crumble. I will be going into like a deeper dive with Mercury, talking about its transit, because this Mercury will be in Leo until September, like early September, and Pluto is retrograding. It's still going to be in Aquarius, but I think the retrograde ends sometime in the fall, so I might just do a short little thing on Pluto being in Aquarius and it's retrograding currently right now, and just the behaviors we have to deal with. But neither here nor there. We have to, that's why I said I want y'all guys to have more fun, but you guys have to fight the urge to be so obsessive and all this other stuff and just pushing in too deep. Like, it's okay to just have fun and like loosen up a little bit, but don't be stupid. So that is the general vibe of Venus. I would also say about that Mercury and Pluto opposing, I would say too, because during the course of Venus being in Gemini and that Mercury retrograding in Leo, the sun will end up moving into Leo as well, because Mercury retrogrades have to coincide close to the sun, because just how far away Mercury and the sun are from one another, but also the sun literally has to purify Mercury. Again, we'll talk about that in another video about Mercury retrograde. But this is also a tendency for people to think that they are always right and correct. And mind you, during the course of this, it will retrograde. So people did not nail it. They were not correct. Like, nailed it. No, you did not nailed it. You wasn't right. You think you're right. You're actually wrong. And people are obsessed with that. This can cause a lot of depression. I would actually recommend for people to, in order to like move things along and not be so cuckoo, try to reserve some of your opinions, avoid controlling people, and really try to look for mental clarity. That would be my best opinion. If you can avoid all of that and use the stuff of positive research and willpower and doing self-improvement versus like, I'm trying to be right, care, all of this, tough Tony nonsense, like, just keep an open mind. You can't be lost and stuck in your own opinions, and don't even offer your opinions. Matter of fact, say, I don't have a comment, no comment. Okay. You know how like people in the public, they be like no comment, and they walk by the camera people, whatever. That's how you need to be, like no comment in your everyday situation. No comment, no comment, no comment. I don't have an opinion, I don't have a comment, I don't think anything, because I need to see what's actually tea, especially since by the end of this transit you probably will be lied to, and then we get all of this insight and clarity, and we're crying, and we're this and we're that and we're that. All right, so let's get into the rising signs. This reading is set up for rising and sun signs. I did not calculate for the moon signs. I didn't calculate for the moon signs on this one, but I did calculate for the sun and rising signs. So that is what you would look for. So the first sign we are going to get into is Aries. Okay, for my Aries rising and sun people, currently currently Venus is in your third house, and so Venus in the third house can sometimes make people a little bit of loners. They kind of like want to do their stealth isolation things, but the relationships with their siblings are good, and there can be a general talent in like the artistic field. So being artistically inclined, maybe if y'all had a little bit more malefics, y'all would be able to maybe act on some of those, because sometimes too many soft aspects in the third kind of make people less inclined to go after their aims. You also have Mercury is Lord in the fifth, and so this is an educated person that loves learning. They're energetic, they're content with good investments, they're generous, and they can have happiness through children. But remember that Mercury is where all that intensity and opinionated, and I think I'm right kind of stuff goes in. So I would recommend Aries to keep an open mind as it deals with creativity, socializing, any like social activities. You go out and hang out with other people, dealing with lovers, sports, stuff like that. Even in investments and education and learning, because the fifth house can have some aspects into education. I would tell you to keep an open mind, and this can impact your dynamics in relationships with your siblings and relatives in the third house, and possibly any artistic endeavors you are trying to accomplish at this time. So hush hush. Good luck, my Aries. Next up is my Taurus people. So for Taurus, your Venus is in the second house, and so this placement indicates material possessions and a liking of material possessions, luxurious goods, and lifestyles. There could be money earned through artistic endeavors, extravagance, and just creative writing in general, which is really, really fun. Now, where you will have to just be mindful of, Mercury is in your fourth, and so you are generally a good conversationalist at this time, very witty, well educated, and content, and has many friends, can be seen as financially comfortable, but there can be unstable upbringing, but the mom is very intellectual. I would say, just keep your opinions and your thoughts around possibly how you were brought up, situations with your mom. There can be some unstableness in the home and family dynamic that can maybe trigger you to have more opinions there, and maybe it shows up in your career because you have Pluto in the 10th. But I would tell you to just like really chill out, and again, keep your opinions to yourself. Don't argue with family, any of those types of things. Like, maybe you feel like you want to have a good conversation and a deep, intimate conversation, pass. And maybe it's triggered from like childhood and home experiences. Don't bring it up. Don't bring up nothing about your upbringing, your mom, none of that, your family, none of that. All right. I won't even talk about your home, where you live. Pass, and pass some more. Okay. But good luck, Taurus. Alrighty, now for my Gemini. currently Venus is sitting in your first, so you're healthy, you're beautiful, you're happy, there's a strong constitution, strong belief, strong physical health, passionate and extravagant nature. Now, what do we have to be mindful of? Well, Mercury is in the third house. And so when Mercury is in the third house, you are a risk taker. Now, this does sharpen your business skills and written communication skills, and they can be good relationships with siblings. And overall, on the worst end, low physical energy. So you might lose energy, you might not be as robust. But because Pluto is in the ninth house, there could be certain things where you kind of want to exert your willpower and kind of your own sense of identity and maybe your beliefs, and maybe you're having more positive or intense forms of willpower or luck, and maybe that can make siblings and relatives uncomfortable. Maybe they aren't sure about who you are anymore, and it doubles down because you are a Mercury person. So your first house lord is in the third house, so expressing yourself, your communication, your ideas are more important to you now. I would tell you to be careful about what you say and your opinions, because this can trigger controlling and obsessive behaviors with people. And I will actually tell you to watch your own controlling and obsessive behaviors and just keep an open mind, because you're literally a Mercury person. But even more so because Pluto is right in your face on your first house lord, on your sun sign, so people can really overly identify or overly try to like come at you. Now, keep all opinions to yourself. You don't know anything. I don't care. I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. I don't know who Jack is. I don't know none of them. So that is another thing. Like, really just keep things like to yourself and just work, because this is a good time to be beautiful and everything. And maybe even sometimes how you look and you being fly can also trigger maybe relatives or families just hating on you or being jealous. So keep that in mind. The last thing I will say too is, because there is a thing of feeling like you're always right or you need to be right, don't stand on none of that. Just stick to facts. If you're right, the events will occur for you to be right. If you're wrong, the events will occur for you to be wrong. Okay, don't hold too much onto your opinion. I know you really want to be able to communicate now because your first house lord is in your third, but you may not be able to communicate the best as this goes on, because we'll talk about it later, but Mercury will retrograde. So you may not say the best things all the time, and it could be communication blunders. So that's why I say practice now keeping your lips closed. Okay. Good luck, Gemini. Alrighty, now for my Cancers. Venus will be in your 12th house. And so this is low-key an accidental dignity, but this creates a lot of sensuality, enjoyment, wealth, and extravagance. Okay, very fancy, Cancer. Now, where you have Mercury is in your second house, and so Mercury here in the second house creates wealth through intelligence or making money through intelligence. Maybe you're writing in private and maybe you can publish your poems. You can be a good communicator and you're well educated. But I will say, because this is in your second house, as Pluto is in your 8th house, you would have to be careful too about what you say and how you say, but also people who want to share power, people who want to have possibly control over the things that you create, your resources, because the second house is the things that you make and the 8th house is things that you share. And so you could have it where people could kind of become obsessive in certain ways around financial things, but also trying to partner with you, and maybe their intentions aren't pure, so I would keep that in mind. There's a lot of obstacles, and maybe the obstacles can be possibly paying off things. It could be debt, but again, there's a lot of odd controlling things where people may be coming at you for the things you write and what you say. And so this is something that you do in private. So also coming at you crazy for the things that you own. So I really would advise you to really look into possibly publishing some of the works and stuff that you can put out there, which I think would be a really good idea for you, because at this time you're really good at writing. But also being careful who you share things with. I would not open my mouth too much, especially around your immediate family and or possibly lovers, because that can also trigger certain things, because Venus is in your 12th house, and we have to be careful because the 12th house can deal with expenses. So like I said, with the debts and having unexpected expenses pop up, but also the second house deals with immediate family. And so sometimes we have it so that immediate family could also trigger all of these expenses and spending. It may be people trying to pressure you to spend, or maybe trying to be controlling and possessive around maybe some of your artistic pursuits at this time. So I really would recommend you to keep things tight-lipped and under wraps and just try to lay low. Okay, good luck, Cancer. Oh, one more thing, Cancer. Because it's the 12th and the 8th house, for you especially, I would really recommend you to also be careful about who you lay with, who we're entertaining in an adult intimate type of fashion. Y'all know what I'm saying? Because there could be some issues around what other people, what they bring to the table and what you bring to the table. And just in a open type way, there may be some confusion. So like even if we're talking about material possessions, they think what you have is what they have, and that's not the case. What I have is what I have, and what you have is what you have. All right, good luck, Cancer. Alrighty, now for my Leos, Venus is in your 11th house at this time. So Venus in the 11th house can make it where material comforts and financial stability can show up. Now, you can also surround yourself with many friends, especially women, having a lot of women folk around you. But Mercury is sitting in your first house, and so this can create a soft-spoken, sweet-speaking nature. You're very sharp with it, and intelligent, generous, friendly, well-educated, and charming. There's knowledge about religion, knowledge about philosophy, and maybe you want to share that more. But some of the control and unusualness is coming from the 10th house. Maybe you have it where people want to control your opinions, control what you say and your thoughts. Now granted, like I said, through the retrograde, Mercury may not be behaving as strongly, so we might not be communicating as well during the time, and we may think we're right. Like literally, I think I'm right, However, we do have to pay attention to external pressures that we face from 7th house. So this can be open competitors. This can also be legalities that we are facing with the law. This can also be through committed relationships, spouses, partnerships, etc. And so maybe they think there's a butting of heads where there's an issue with control, an issue with obsession, people thinking that they're right, and just overall just an intense time for you trying to just get along with other people. They may not even act in a way that is normal how they usually act, so that's also kind of off and confusing for you at this time. But again, keep all your opinions to yourself, even opinions about yourself, even opinions about your friends you're making, any women you're socializing or interacting with. The 11th house is earnings from career. Keep that to yourself. The 11th house is friendships, who you're socializing with, and in this case it could be women. Keep all of that to yourself. That is nobody's business. Okay, we also have it where you have to keep your goals and ambitions to yourself as well. Good luck, Leo. Okay, for my Virgos, all of this is occurring in your, I think Venus would be in your 10th house. Yeah, in your 10th house. And so there can be a lot of fulfilling relationships and friendships now. You can have recognition through a lucrative career, most likely in the arts, and respected and well known, and you can do really well volunteer work or trying to help others, or somehow try to alleviate society and make the world a better place. Now you do have Mercury in your 12th. So there can be a lot of sorrow. They can feel like there's a learning problem. It's hard for you to catch on to things, weakened physical energy and strength. And overall, a nervous system is a wreck. Maybe we can feel insecure, and we can also be very frugal at this time. So there's just a lot of mental stimuli and mental ups and downs. I would really recommend for my Virgos to really watch out about your 6th house dynamics, because in the 6th house, we deal with co-workers, and so maybe our work life is very much so tied into this, who we work with, what our daily routines and tasks are. So we may have to try different routines. We have to sleep better, eat better, exercise better. Maybe we can get a pet or some type of support, like a little animal, to really help. It could also possibly be helpful to possibly go through therapy for people who feel like they need extra support mentally to get rid of all of this anxiety, overthinking, etc. I would also recommend you to be careful about who we hang out as far as in coworkers and interactions, because they may not have the best intention. And so it's good to keep a lot of your business to yourself. Do not offer an opinion about any of this stuff. Don't talk about how well your health is or isn't going, any of those things. That is no one's business. We also see it where there can be secret love affairs and maybe who we fantasize or what our subconscious dreams are or hidden talents. Again, keep that to yourself. That is nobody's business. And because we are dealing with Pluto being in the 6th house, we could even possibly get into certain forms of not Pluto being in the 6th house. Pluto is in the 6th house. Getting into certain wrestling matches with people. Getting into power struggles with people. And it's very tense and it's stressful, like the work career and having to deal with people slandering you and coming at you and trying to compete with you at this time. Again, nobody's business. Keep things to yourself. Okay? You just keep your head down and you work, and don't offer any opinions. It's not anybody's business. And good luck to Virgos and their health and whatever else is going on with them at this time. Okay? Really try some therapy, maybe get a pet, change your diet and routine if you really need to make sure that you're living a more supported lifestyle. Good luck, Virgo. All right, now for my Libras, Venus will be in your 9th house, which is actually a pretty cool placement. Venus in the 9th house actually performs pretty decently. This can bring prosperity. Maybe the spouse comes from a foreign land, or maybe you travel internationally with your spouse at this time. You can also be blessed with a spouse in general. Maybe you get blessed with a partnership, or whether it's business or not, but usually, marriage, but blessed at this time with that. We can also be blessed with children and blessed with a lot of friends, which is beautiful. Now, where you have Pluto and where you have Mercury and where you have to look out for, Mercury is in your 11th house. And so with Mercury in the 11th house, there's a lot of success with finances. Friendships are cultivated with intelligent and artistic people. There's a lot of honesty, happiness, and just overall wealth. You're doing really, really well at this time. But remember, you have Pluto in the 5th house. And so there can be some issues with people creating intense situations with creativity, love affairs, complications with children, and just overall ruining plans. And it can make it very, very hard at this time. So I would keep any business you have about how much you're earning from your career, how well you're doing interacting with people, you being blessed with a certain spouse, and people being jealous and spiteful and controlling and irritated about this. This can also be centered around older siblings. I would not tell your older sibling nothing. I don't care how well y'all getting along. Let this transit pass and to a better transit, and then I may consider bringing it up. I would not say jack. Okay? I wouldn't tell nobody what my goals are in life. None of that. Keep all of that to yourself. Okay? Good luck. Good luck, my Libras. Alrighty, now for my Scorpios. I'm not gonna lie, one could argue that this is a pretty strong placement. Venus does really well in the 8th house. Venus in the 8th can give a strong constitution, strong physical health, and belief systems. It gives a wealthiness. It gives happiness and money through partnerships. It also gives a strong sensuality. So your partner makes money and then they give it to you. Who doesn't love that? So Mercury will be in your 10th. And so Mercury here in the 10th house It actually can help bring success to your career because Mercury is also does really well in that career house, bringing respect in your chosen field. It gives a strong learning ability, intelligence, strength, and a good speaker in your overall ethical. Again, I would keep your opinions to yourself as it deals with your career, and open to the public and possibly reputation. Just watch what you say at this time. Although you're at a pinnacle high, there could be some issues where we can deal with control and manipulation by way of your mom, by way of family, dealing with your home, but also people trying to control what you say and how you express yourself at work. I really would keep it like very sterile and very clean, so that way people can't say or use inappropriate things against you at this point in time. For my Scorpios, just keep everything very clean at work, because again, people are very controlling, but also at the same time, because Mercury retrograde and conjunct the sun, there's a strong desire to think that we're correct at this time and we're not open-minded, which also creates more drama for us. So again, keep that on the hush. Don't share any of too much of your opinions that aren't like just frivolous. Just keep it light, keep it superficial. Okay, good luck, Scorpio. Alrighty, now for my Sagittarius, Venus will be in your 7th house, and so here, when Venus hits your 7th house, this can be a strong indicator of many friendships, being fortunate in marriage and other relationships, having romance, money through marriage partner. And for some people who struggle, this might make you overly sensual. Now, where do we have Mercury? Well, we have to watch our mouths. So here, Mercury is in the 9th house, and so it makes people well educated. It makes them good earners and can make money decently at work. And an eloquent speaker, we can be charming and interested in philosophy and religion. I will tell you to watch your mouth as talking about what your belief systems are, what your religions are, talking about college, higher education, international travel, good legal news, how well you're doing with your in-laws. Like me and my mother-in-law about to go somewhere. That is nobody's business. Saying you about to travel internationally, any type of good luck or any type of good deed that you did, like, oh, I just walked such and such across the street, or I just donated. Keep all of that to yourself, because again, people are trying to be controlling and manipulative. But also, you can also think you possibly are right around your spiritual beliefs or your religion and your philosophy or what you learned at school and through college or whatever. Keep all of that to yourself. Keep the conversation light. It's nobody's business. And you don't need to trigger all of this control and wild placement. It's better to sometimes have peace and just relax and enjoy yourself wherever you have Venus, and then to deal with all the stress and complications and possibly heartache. All right, good luck, Sag. Alrighty, now for my Capricorns, you have Venus in your 6th house. Venus in the 6th house makes an indicator for many friends. Work may also involve the arts, because the 6th house is a house of work. Also, being able to get along well with co-workers, and general good health. Now, where do you have Mercury? Where do you have to watch what you say? Well, your Mercury is in the 8th house, and so there can be gains in fame and recognition. This can also be an indicator of good health, benefits through finances of others, so people give you money that can also be beneficial. This also creates some type of difficulty in learning because the mind is restless, and so there can be sometimes talking about what other people, you got approved for a loan, other people give you their money, nobody business. Sometimes you being famous or being able to get recognition and maybe talking about something dope that happened to you, like, oh, I just got an award for such and such. I know we want to share, but this is not the transit to share. Unfortunately, it's not the transit to share. The other thing is also we thinking we're right, and we could be also thinking we right in how we obtain other people's power, fame, recognition. Look, you may be correct, or you may just be hitting a lucky streak because you're in the right place, right time, right transit, and that's not bad either. A blessing is a blessing. However, keep all of that to yourself, because it can trigger people not getting along. It can trigger people being jealous. But again, the sun conjunct Mercury is going to happen, so people think that they're right and they're not right. So this can also impact people's Venus, where they start off well and then all of their relationships, everything is burning and busting into flames. So you may or may not be correct, because again, where the sun and Venus is, and Mercury has to fix itself 3 times a year, just try to keep an open mind, because you already have difficulties with friendships and maybe seeing people clearly. So yeah, you get all of this stuff now, but maybe you don't see people for who they are, and maybe you might regret taking on monetary funding or money from certain people, and they might not be the best of people. They might not be in the right state of their mind, you know. Good luck, Capricorn. Alrighty, now for my Aquariuses, Venus is in your 5th house. You are just a little lover girl, lover boy at this point. This creates an intelligent, artistic, romantic, and sensual nature. You are financially stable, which is a blessing, because Aquarius love to spend money, child. And you could be blessed with children. So where do you have to watch what you say? Your 7th house. So Mercury in the 7th house can create an intelligent and well-dressed and wealth through the marriage partner. So the marriage partner gives them money, or your marriage partner can also gain money by way of you. But it does create a competitive nature and a desire to succeed through hard work. I'm saying, just because you think you're right and there's a desire to compete maybe with other people verbally and just get out there, don't do that, Aquarius. Don't do that. That's nobody's business. Now maybe you have a partner or a spouse, and maybe you make more money than them, and maybe they came up by way of you, and then maybe they just try to be sassy and compete with you this random transit. I don't know, child, but I would not talk too much. And maybe your partner also ends up trying to be competitive and very sassy and think they're right in the moment, which can also create issues with you, because Pluto is in your 1st house. So you might want to get controlling and irritable, but they could very well, to a certain extent, be doing well. And that can also trigger sometimes jealousy and irritability out of you, because it's in your 1st house. And so there's an issue at this time with your own personal power, your own, sense of self, versus dealing with other people. And this can also trigger obsession and control and all the other stuff with partnerships and relationships, whether it be through competitors or not. Now, this can also uptick competitors in general, because Mercury in this house creates competition in general. Just competition off the chart. So even if this isn't a romantic partner where we're getting competitive with, we're going back and forth, where we're arguing, they want to prove themselves or whatever, we can also have it where competitors can show up and they want to compete with us now. All right. Good luck, Aquarius. Alrighty, now for my Pisces. This is occurring in your 4th house. So Venus will be in your 4th. So when Venus is in the 4th, it makes for a comfortable home. You guys like clothes now, art and luxury, having a good relationship with your mom, and you are also just very fair-minded and light, which is very, very adorable at this time. Mercury is in your 6th. And so this is where we have to watch our mouths. So Mercury in the 6th can somewhat be very interesting. It creates a nature where people can be interested in their health, but also argumentative, restless, and lethargic. Again, I don't want you arguing about what you think is right, or just even with coworkers, people that we work with. It can also be where we can get into it with people who could be slanderers, or people where we have in competition. So we're arguing and all this other stuff. But the other thing is, because you're dealing with that lethargicness and wanting to focus on health, I'd rather you use this information and all this stuff to really get your nerves together, because there's an irritability, but also that tiredness, that lethargicness. Focus on your health. This is a time to detox. And so because Pluto is in the 12th house, we're having all of these subconscious and or mental things that could be also having a poor impact on our health. We think we're correct, and we might not be correct, So watch out for who you interact with your coworkers, people who would slander you. And don't be so restless and argumentative about everything. I'd rather you focus on your subconscious, your mind, and getting that correct. Okay. Good luck, Pisces. Okay, guys, this is the end of the reading. You guys stay safe, and I love you. Goodbye and good luck.